Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back.
So, guys, this is something we've been suspecting for years, and it's finally come out, and it's going to be known everywhere.
It is.
Uranus is leaking gas.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, we could pronounce that a different way.
We could. Your anus is leaking gas.
She said it. Oh my gosh,
Sorry.
she said it. It's properly pronounced Uranus.
I know, I'm so immature.
Yes, anyway, it is leaking gas into space every 17 hours. We kid you not.
Sorry.
Uranus is an unusual planet with a humorous name, to say the least. And it's been discovered that the planet spins on an unconventional axis, which means its magnetic field essentially opens and shuts. In short, Uranus leaks gas every 17 hours.
I don't know. I hope that's not true for everybody, or maybe it just needs to be true.
Well, Uranus spins on its side at nearly 98 degrees from its plane of orbit. And this is unusual when compared to most planets, which rotate relatively close to their plane of orbit. The magnetic field of the planet also deviates from the norm and is at a 59-degree angle from the rotational axis. The combination of these factors makes the magnetosphere of Uranus very odd.
One might ask, are you guys really that immature? Yes.
So due to this unusual magnetosphere, the planet allows solar winds to blow through it when it enters at the right angle. Scientists anticipate that such an angle would occur once every 17 hours. Interestingly, the passing of gas could also give the planet an aurora. This gas flow was discovered after Jin Chao and Carol Patty from the Georgia Institute of Technology modeled the magnetosphere of Uranus. The results of the model also coincided with previous evidence found by NASA's Voyager 2. Okay, so are we going to be able to do the rest of this video without laughing now? Now, right off the bat, Uranus is an interesting one.
Yeah,
it is.
It is. It truly is.
It's on it's at 98 degrees. It's kind of on its side there. What caused it? That's the thing. This is another one of those things that leans towards there being some sort of massive scale cataclysm or cataclysmic event that occurred in the solar system. And so we see here, astronomers reported they detected the amino acid glycine in the atmosphere of Venus. So interesting, because Venus is supposed to be completely, it's a no-go for life according to, what they tell us. And we're going to go over some facts about Venus that, maybe they're facts and maybe they're disinfo as well. So this is an amino acid. This is a building block of life that they believe they've found on Venus. And 10 weirdest facts about Venus. Volcanoes, there are more volcanoes on Venus than any other planet in the solar system. Astronomers know of more than 1,600 volcanoes on its surface, and there's likely a lot more that we don't see. The day outlasts the year. So the day on Venus is longer than a year. So Venus's day is 243 Earth's days. That's because it's rotating so slowly. While a year on Venus is shorter at 224.
I would hate to have a bad day on Venus.
A bad day would be a bad thing. And Venus is Earth's twin. It's closest to the size of the Earth. Actually, they're almost equal. Exactly. It's so close. It's kind of feels like unlikely, doesn't it? Because you don't have any other two planets that are so close in size. Now they say Venus is scorching hot because of the bulk of its atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide. An extreme greenhouse effect is warming the surface of Venus. Temperatures there can be 870 degrees Fahrenheit. So, you could roast a chicken if you had a chicken on Venus. Well, it wouldn't take long to roast at 870 degrees.
Right.
They say the surface is hot enough to melt lead due to its runaway greenhouse atmosphere. Extreme pressure. The air pressure on the surface of Venus is extreme, about 90 times higher than the pressure at sea level here on Earth. In other words, the pressure on Venus is about the same as the water pressure on Earth, about half a mile under the ocean. And we actually get to see Venus cross the sun, and actually the only ones we see do that are Venus and Mercury because they're closer in than we are. It's our brightest planet, not because it is the brightest planet, but just because it's so close to us. And the mystery of the ancients. Venus has been a target of observation for millennia. The ancient Babylonians tracked its wanderings through the sky in records that date back as far as 1600 BC. The Greek mathematician Pythagoras was the first to discover that the brightest stars in the morning and the evening were the same object, Venus. Morning star, you know. It's interesting because Venus does equate with Lucifer when we look at it. And then also Venus is the goddess of love. So what does that tell you?
It sounds a little
contradictory, right?
It does, yeah.
It's a windy planet. The winds swipe across Venus at speeds that could reach 450 miles an hour, or so they say.
Yeah.
And Venus has phases. Because Venus orbits the Earth within Earth's orbit, the planet appears to have phases like the moon. When Venus is on the opposite side of the sun, it's in full phase, while it appears in a new phase when it's between the Earth and the sun. And Galileo Galilei was the first one to notice that. So Venus is interesting too, and they didn't even talk about it, but it spins backwards compared to us. I mean, there is the thought, Velikovsky thought it was captured into that orbit and it came from somewhere else. Perhaps it was a moon of something, like Jupiter or Saturn. There is the thought that it might be a moon of Saturn that escaped.
Interesting.
And there is also the thought that the Earth was too.
Interesting, yeah.
And then there is the thought that Saturn was the original sun.
I can almost feel that.
You can. It's interesting because Jupiter and Saturn could get into big conflict, can't they?
Yes. Oh, yes. Big time.
December 21st, guys.
Yep.
So solar flare activity intensifies. There's a new spot in the sun, AR 2782. It's not particularly large, but it's very unstable. And our brother Mark over at Wages World, he does a great job covering all these things in great detail. The active region is crackling with C-class solar flares. The action began on November 11th with this Category C2 eruption that we see here. Dr. Tony Phillips at Space Weather urges you to watch the animation again. Do you see a sudden dimming just outside the blast site, he asks, which you can see there. The explosion actually blew hot gas out of the sun's atmosphere towards Uranus. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Leaving a relatively dark void behind. The flare proceeded to hurl a CME into space, and NOAA analysts are modeling the storm cloud now to see if it might hit Earth. Dr. Phillips says it's unlikely because the sunspot isn't facing Earth, but as the spot turns around the limb, it's certainly worth keeping an eye on. In other news, rare red and pink auroras have returned to the skies over Finland. As occurred earlier in the month, the pinkish hue appears when the solar wind was slow and unusually dense, a further indication that something is up with our planet's magnetic field. The color pink is significant, points out Dr. Phillips. It means that particles from space are descending lower than usual in the Earth's atmosphere. Yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind and aware of. Green auroras happen when the electrons strike oxygen atoms 100 to 200 kilometers above Earth's surface. Pink appears when the electrons burrow deeper, striking nitrogen molecules at the 100-kilometer level and below. So, the changing magnetosphere, the changing times, the changing storms, everything's changing. And here we see Goblin. And Goblin's this new, piece of rock supposedly out there in the space that is not particularly large, but its orbit hints at Planet 9, Planet X, whatever you want to call it. Some will say, hey, there it is, Nibiru.
Yeah, I feel like this is one to keep an eye on, actually.
So this Goblin, it's also known as 2015 TG 387. It's a 200-mile wide rock, which is about 7.9 billion miles from the sun. about 2.5 times as far away from the sun as Pluto, so that's pretty far. And the Goblin was found during the largest and deepest survey astronomy's hunt for the unknown dwarf planets and also Planet X. And, and as of yet undiscovered world that could have a mass 10 times that of the Earth and lie way out there.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so, Nibiru, more evidence of Nibiru, guys, or is it something else?
I'm keeping an eye on it.
We shall. And we have another fireball, brilliant bright green one over Brazil. Looks pretty spectacular.
Oh, it's beautiful.
There's video here for you guys to see, so we've had a lot of those. And this is what you get when you get hurricane season in Florida and flooding. These guys like to move from pond to pond. It's best to keep your eyes open. Actually, a friend of mine once was going home from work, and this was in Hilton Head, South Carolina. And he actually ran over the tail of one. He didn't even notice it, and he was lucky he didn't get snapped, because they'll cross the bike paths over there in Hilton Head pretty regularly. And I actually saw way more gators living on Hilton Head Island than I did living anywhere in Florida. And I lived in about 5 different spots in Florida. This is a big guy, though. This definitely looks like a big guy. This is Naples, Florida.
Wow.
And so, Tropical Storm Eta heads offshore after drenching central and northern Florida. And so, this isn't a really unusual storm. This storm has been around since like Halloween, before Halloween. And it's finally moving away from the state after dumping torrents of rain, leaving at least 1 person dead. It made its second landfall. The first was on the Keys. And 4th landfall overall. Boy, talk about taking a beating with one storm.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So it was just south of Cedar Key, Florida, roughly a 130-mile drive northwest of Tampa. At 4 a.m. with winds of 50 miles an hour. And so by Thursday afternoon, its center was moving offshore over the Atlantic near the Florida-Georgia state line. Still had sustained winds of 40 miles an hour. About 2 to 6 inches of rain fell over central and northern Florida on Wednesday into Thursday morning. Officials in areas including St. Petersburg, Sarasota, and Madeira Beach have responded to reports of roofs torn off and flooded streets in the last couple of days, and more than 21,000 people without power. So Governor DeSantis was addressing that, and he promises support to Tampa, of course, and the cleanup will be underway. The real tragedy, though, is like in Central America with this storm. Honduras was devastated, and so Honduran players, a major soccer league, are trying to ask for any donations anybody could help with the cleanup, because it's a mess there. And I'll give you guys all the links going on. There's video there as well. More than half of Honduras' banana production was destroyed by Eta. So, that's another thing, adding these storms, everything going on is just adding into the food problem that's going to be developing.
It does. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and I don't see an end in sight.
So, Honduras is very hard hit. 457 houses damaged, 41 communities were cut off, 9 bridges were destroyed, 63 fatalities there reported as of November 10th. And again, half of the bananas destroyed. And meanwhile, Typhoon Vamco strikes the Philippines, leaving a massive trail of destruction. And so this one had 96-mile-an-hour winds and steady winds and gusts up to 127. And this was the 21st storm to hit the country this year. 4 in the past month. Just one after one after one. 200,000 people now are homeless because of this. Millions without power. So this was much more damaging than Eta was. It's just a strong storm. This is what we're seeing. There's all sorts of videos and pictures from Twitter too showing tremendous damage. It's really a very sad situation, so let's send our prayers and best wishes to everybody over there. And you have 300,000 lightning strikes in South Australia, plunging thousands in the dark. Seems like we were just talking about that like a couple weeks ago, and then a week before that. Look at that.
Isn't that beautiful? Look at that purple color. I love it.
Yeah, it is beautiful, but they're calling it an apocalyptic storm. And so at least 8,000 families and businesses in the dark there. 300,000 lightning strikes, and many of those ignited bushfires as well. And all these things, again, just keep adding to everything that's building up. And so there's a time-lapse video here where you could see how Kilauea's, this water here is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And so footage showing a boiling lake inside Kilauea's volcano is getting deeper and deeper over the course of the year, and it's been released by the USGS. So when you look at it, it started out at 46 feet deep before, and now it's 154 feet deep. And, wondering what's going on with this. Is this going to portend another volcanic explosion? Will Kilauea wake up again?
It feels like it is, for sure.
And Cindy's going to tell us about...
Oh no, Nishonoshima.
Nishinoshima, rapidly growing volcanic island in Japan. So, here we see new land, being created. That's a pretty good sized crater there that looks like it might be steaming. So, it's a volcanic island located in the Agasawara archipelago, south of Tokyo. And it's been expanding since its eruption back in 2013. And it does look like a small island, but it's actually the summit of a huge seamount that rises more than 1.8 miles from the seafloor. And that just gets me thinking about Edgar Cayce and the new rising land in the Pacific and also in the Atlantic, the second coming of Atlantis and Lemuria, perhaps.
It's beautiful. It's fun.
Meanwhile, we have record cold and snow engulfing California and Nevada. So after you had all that record heat, you go plunging into record cold and breaking records one after the other.
On and on and on.
So you have over at Lake Tahoe, them getting 18 inches of snow over the weekend. And they had 10 inches at the Sugar Bowl before that. Daytime temps plunged to 50 degrees with freeze warnings and frost advisories for the overnight. This is what we got. This is what we're going to get. We're going to be going back and forth between these extremes. And so, as you see here, mainstream media blames the East heat on climate change while ignoring the West's dominating cold. It's a tale of two sides right here.
Yep.
Kind of like the country politically as well. But again, what's it about? It's all about the weakening magnetosphere. It's all about the grand solar minimum, the magnetic pole reversal, and the jet stream. So that you're gonna get this. We have all these things going on. It's just incredible. As we were saying the other day, 76 degrees this time of year in Maine. That's unusual.
Yeah, it is.
But then at the same time, in Nevada, we're expecting in some areas to be still in the 60s, well in the 60s, and you're 30 degrees colder.
Yep.
They had snow over in
by Death Valley. They did.
By Death Valley, yeah.
Yep.
So why does the sky turn bright green before and during a tornado event?
I don't know.
Well, neither do scientists. Specifically, they haven't quite figured it out yet. And what's interesting, too, is it's common for this to happen in some parts of the world, but it doesn't happen at all in other parts of the world. So there's a couple of videos here. This one's from Toronto. They say air molecules scatter light. To understand the first theory, try picturing mountains in the distance, which often look a deepening blue. The blue color stems from the scattering of light by air molecules. The same reason, scattered light causes the sky to look blue. Now remember that the strongest storms tend to happen late in the day. Some experts think that before a thunderstorm, golden reddish light from a sun low in the sky and a natural bluing effect makes green. Now that makes sense. I remember that from art class.
Yes, absolutely.
And then there's a video over here in Minnesota as well. And water is intrinsically blue as well. So that's another possibility of why it happens that way. And there's tornado in Brooklyn again showing the greenish hue. But anything about it. One thing is for sure: if the sky turns green during a thunderstorm, gather up your pets and loved ones, head for the cellar. A twister might be on the way.
Wow.
If you have a cellar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have 200 ducks
Aw.
dead after they mistook wet pavement for wetland marshes. Now they're dead because they got hit by cars. And these were migrating ducks. Something tells me something's not right there, and I gotta wonder about FIVE.
I do too, and all the EMF and the new things that are coming out, the new cell towers. We just don't know.
Yeah, what would cause them to think that a parking lots and stuff is a field?
Well, if their brain was confused with different energy patterns, yeah,
Maybe pathological.
yeah.
I mean, frequency is what came to me right off the bat. But what if there is like a virus or something like that?
Yeah, that
Something
would be
going on.
That'd be bad.
We know we had a lot of those.
Yep.
Now this is a big owie.
Ouch.
This cyclist is hospitalized with his body covered in spikes after he crashed into a cactus. Oh my God. It's going to take a couple of very close friends to pull out every single one of those spikes.
Every single one, and I wouldn't want to be him or the doctor. How is this going to work?
Oh,
Oh.
wow, that hurts.
Wow.
That is absolutely brutal.
Oh.
Even The Rock says game over.
Yes, that's pretty bad.
It's just, wow. That is so brutally, brutally painful.
Yes.
There's video there if you could tolerate it.
Let's send him some energy.
Yes, yes. So, guys, thank you so much for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you. Stay prepared out there. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.